So recently I've been messing around with stereo modulator circuits, and this is one that I've built here, but that's not what the purpose of this video is. Okay, this is not the prettiest circuit board I've ever made. I tried tin plating it and the result was not very encouraging. I tried to tin plate it, and it looks a bit of a shabby mess, to be honest, but still works well as a stereo modulator. But that's not the point of this video. I'll get on to that. So I've got this tuner here which has been living in the attic for I don't know how many years, 5, 6 years, who knows. So it's been extremely hot up there recently and fairly cold in the winter, and I'm just trying to see the model number. Doesn't seem to be very visible, does it? Well, I know what it is. It's Pioneer TX608L, I'm pretty sure. And the L, of course, stands for the fact that it's got medium wave on it, which a lot of the tuners didn't have when they came out of Japan. And I'm just drinking my coffee. So yeah, that's one nice feature it's got. I think I bought it on eBay for about 10 quid. So I didn't spend a hell of a lot on it. Of course, the elephant in the room is, if that's the right expression, the digital display. Of course, it didn't come with a digital display originally, but I fitted that into it, and it works very well. I've done that to a few tuners. Get them off eBay for £10, £11. You can choose different colours. I always like red. I thought it was more in keeping with the era, this being 79, maybe 1980 vintage. Nothing special about this tuner. It was a sort of bottom of the range one. Didn't have multiple tuning gangs or RF amplifiers in the front end, unlike the TX9800, which I also had at one point, which was probably one of the best tuners ever made, I think. Analog tuners anyway. And I also fitted that with a digital display. So I think I made a fairly good job of putting the display in, apart from the screws, which look a bit, how you doing? And then there's another rather sad thing over here, is this little switch. Looks completely out of keeping with the rest of the front panel, and I wish I'd done it differently now. And because I wanted to use this tuner at the time, about 10 years ago, for FMDXing, long distance reception, I thought I'd fit a narrow and wide IF filter, and the normal filters that this would have come with were fairly wide. So if you had a strong signal and you wanted to receive a weaker signal close to that strong signal, you would have problems receiving it. So I basically found out that you could buy filters of different bandwidths and put them in as replacements in the IF section at 10.7 megahertz. Ceramic filters, of course. Still drinking the coffee, and so that's what I set out to do. And I used a relay to switch the input to the filter and the output to the filter, and it would switch between the two different ceramic filters, which were a wide one, original one in this, and I think the narrow one I put in was something like 120 kilohertz bandwidth at 3 dB, 6 dB, don't know, can't remember, whatever. So that works quite well, and it certainly does pull out weak stations. I was playing with it just now, and a weak mono station would improve the signal to noise by putting it into narrow mode, but you wouldn't use it on stereo, of course, or to listen to music, because it would limit your bandwidth on your high frequencies, and you might even find some distortion with a 120 kilohertz filter because of the deviation being too wide for it. But that is a diversion for what the point of this was. I got it out of the attic. I thought I'd use it to do some more tests on stereo modulator, board distortion, bandwidth, stuff like that. And sadly it's gone very crackly. Let me turn the volume up. I've got it plugged into an amplifier. And I've knocked everything off the bench. Then pick my meter up. You can see this, it's really bad on the tuning. Still works well when you get a station, but in stereo,
yes.
they are really crackly around there. In fact, you notice it better with no signal. Unplug the aerial. Now it seems to sort itself out a bit. But I have been twiddling its knob a bit. You see, that always helps to twiddle its knob. And at the top end, I noticed there was no crackling at all when I first tested it. It's mainly down the bottom end of the band. That's particularly bad there. Turn that off for a second. So I think it's suffered. It was up in the attic, as I said, and a couple of weeks ago we had temperatures of well into mid-30s. In the attic I'm sure it was a lot hotter than that. So it might have been up to 40 or more in the attic. So I think it's bad contacts. I don't think it's... Let's move it out of the way. Let me just reposition. So here we are looking at the tuning capacitor, which is giving me trouble. And the obvious thing to think when you're working on something like this is that the airspace vanes will be shorting together, but I don't think that's a problem. And what we've got here is we've got one FM section, long and medium wave, another FM, long and medium wave again, and another FM section on the end. And there'll be an oscillator tuning and maybe two front end RF amplifier tuning capacitors of low value, maybe 50, 100 PF, something like that, for the FM stage. But I don't think the vanes are shorting, because there's no reason why they should. I haven't abused it, I haven't kicked it down the stairs, and although there is some bending on those vanes, that is perfectly normal. That's how they adjust it at the factory to do their local oscillator and the front end tuning. Of course you've got other adjustments on top as well, but having come across this sort of problem before, I think it's much more likely to be the I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but I think it's more likely to be the metal shorting strips, spring-loaded contact onto the shaft of the tuning capacitor. That's what I've discovered in the past. I don't know, there is one in the middle, and there will be one again at the end down there. So I think that's much more likely to be causing an intermittent, and it would probably be a lot less noticeable on medium and long wave. I'm not quite sure what I should do with it really, but I mean, I could go to the whole extent of taking the tuning capacitor out. Well, then you get into dial cord nightmares, because if you're taking one of these off, it's not for the faint-hearted. I've done it before, but you've got to remember exactly how the cord is wound, and sometimes you can get them off without unwinding the cords. Put loads of tape over this to stop it unwinding, and then pull the plastic cog wheel off, and then work on it, carefully noting where it was already positioned when it was on there, although you can adjust it. So I'm not going to go down that route of taking the actual capacitor out, although that probably would be a better solution because I could get in there. But as it's just a rarely used piece of equipment, I think just spray a bit of Servicol, which is probably not the ideal stuff to be spraying in it, but it's about all I've got here. So let me go and get some Servicol and we'll give it a little bit of a squirt. Right, I've got my Servicol, although it's cutting low. Now I don't want this to go in the veins of the capacitors, and just spray a bit in there, and similarly on the centre one, and finally the end one. Now that may or may not fix it, and it wouldn't be a permanent fix. That problem would come back. It really needs to be cleaned properly, but I don't fancy taking the capacitor out at the moment. If it was a high-end tuner, I would do, but as I said, this is not one of their high-end models. It probably cost about 100 back in the early 80s. So let's see what it sounds like now. Bloody thing.
And lecture.
Of course you have to work it backwards and forwards. Let it soak in a bit, get distributed around the shaft of the capacitor. There's one or two miscellaneous signals here, but that's being generated in the workshop. Got no aerial in the moment. Not sure why there's one on there, that frequency, but I don't think it's a problem. Now you can see or hear they really are no crackles that I can hear. That's another miscellaneous signal that doesn't concern anybody but me. Let's give it a bit more.
Queen or two.
No, I reckon I've cured it. But as I said, that is not going to be a permanent cure, and there are probably better solutions, in other words better products than Servicol, but it's all I've got. Maybe a little drop of oil on there even might help, but that's all I'm going to do with it anyway. But it was just an example of the problems you get in tuners when you think, oh, crackling, it's got to be the plate shorting, but it's more likely to be the earthing contacts on the tuning shaft. Anyway, that's more or less the end of the video, and it'll go back in the attic, and next time I bring it out I'm sure it'll start crackling again. But one day I might take the capacitor out, but it's a lot of work for something of no particular value. So that's it for now, and bye, and thanks for watching.